Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a motorcycle racing TV show called Team Chicago Challenge. My website is teamchicago.tv. My email is teamdan45@gmail.com. I enjoy hearing from my audience, so if you want to make a comment on this show, just send me an email at teamdan45@gmail.com and we'll respond to it. So today, I'm at Andre's Harley Davidson in Urbana. It's right off of Interstate 74 and Lincoln Avenue, I believe. It's right 6 blocks north of the fairgrounds. I've been down here racing the half mile down here many times over the last few years, and even back in the 1970s I came down to race the fairgrounds. So they were nice enough to say, come on down, you could use our patio to shoot the shows. I'm joined with my two grandsons, Maxx and Leo, and we're going to go over their dad's racing history. That's right, my son Dan raced BMX from the early days, starting in 1978, 79, 80, before there were even nationals, running local stuff. So pretty good stuff. So what do you guys think of these pictures that you're looking at?
It looks like it's a picture of all the members that were a part of the BMX team for Team Chicago.
Right. So did your dad ever tell you about Team Chicago BMX Team? How he traveled around the country with these 7, 8 different members?
Not as much as he used to.
Yeah. How about you, Leo? Did you know anything about like this big trophy? I'm going to show a picture. Could you ever known your dad won a trophy that big?
I didn't know that.
Okay.
That big.
All right, so that's the team. We put the team together after your dad started racing. So turn the page. And there was some other pictures. Now we shot all these pictures right across the street from where I live at the Irish Center. But back then it was Mayfair Junior College. But it gave a good drop setting for Team Chicago. So I put together promotional pictures for Team Chicago. And but that's the picture that is, and I even sent that picture to the Zion Park District, a copy of that picture, because they have no pictures from when they were putting on BMX racing. Zion Park District was one of the first park districts in all of Chicagoland to put on BMX racing. And the backstory, the great story about that picture and Zion, is that's how we met Billy Karras, Greek name. Well, it was Billy and John Walker for sure. Those two guys lived in Uptown in Chicago. They didn't have any family per se to take them to the races. These guys would put their bicycles, because back then you couldn't put your bicycle in the train. They would get boxes and put their bicycle in boxes, get on the train, the regular commuter line, pick it up in Ravenswood, take that line all the way to Zion. Then they would put their bikes back together again when they got to Zion, and they would ride from the train station in Waukegan to Zion to race. That's how dedicated. They would also ride their bikes all the way from Uptown in Chicago. They would start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they would ride to Itasca to race. So they didn't have any Little League dads, Little League moms. They didn't have anybody to drive them around the country. And that's why when Danny was racing, your dad was racing, we all became like family. So it really worked out to be a pretty good deal for most of them. And I owned a van because I was racing motorcycles. So it became convenient that we could fit 5 or 6 bikes on the back of the van and have 5 or 6 people, or the bikes would be in the van and people would be sitting on top of the bikes. But we would, I would take them to a good number of races.
So whenever you were starting Team Chicago for the BMX team, did you find all the members at once, or did it take time?
No, I think they eventually worked. It was mainly John Walker and Billy and JT. And those were the 3 guys that were really hanging around. Then Brent Woods, who lived in Edgebrook, he started hanging around. And then John Roy came in a little bit later, but basically it was 5, 6, 7 different people that got together, and we, you know, they were racing in Tinley Park, they're racing in Tinley Park, they're racing in Itasca, they're racing, and then we would travel once around down to Mantino, and they were racing there. So that became, there weren't nationals yet. We didn't get into the national stuff till a little bit later in the season. So this is the first year. I believe, I'm not sure if he won that first race, but I think he was in the 7 to 11-year-old class, and I think he took 4th. But all the kids were older. He was probably the younger, but he definitely had, and he didn't have a BMX bike either. In fact, that bike he's racing there, eventually I think he broke the frame from jumping, so then we had to buy the MCS frame, and that became his first race bike. So here's some pictures from Tinley Park. No, yeah, Tinley Park. That's Tinley Park. And you can see now by then there was classes for all the different age groups. So they would have a 6-year-old class, they would have a 7-year-old class, an 8-year-old class. I think he's only 7 years old here, racing the first few races that year. And that's how he, you know, you got to go. But let me tell you, your dad basically won every race he was in. I mean, it was unbelievable. But the whole key of BMX racing was fear. You could tell the kids that were afraid to hit them jumps, and they would back off. Your dad would hit them jumps wide open. He would try to go as far as possible over the jump on his bicycle. So he had no fear, and he was riding his bicycle. I mean, he was riding a 2-wheeler starting when he was like 3 and a half. You know, by the time he was 4 years old, he was beating up bicycles because he would jump in anything he could jump.
How many races altogether has he done?
What's that?
How many races has he done?
How many races were there that he raced?
Yeah.
All in all, over 100, easily over 100. So this was all local racing. So every weekend, every Sunday, every Saturday, there'd be a race. Now, it just so happened in 1978. My Triumph was not competitive anymore. So I wasn't really going to a lot of half miles. And because I wasn't going to a lot of half miles, I had time to take them to races. So, and then I met, you know, there were certain people that their kids were racing that I was friends with also. Right, so go to the next page.
When did you stop racing?
Pardon?
When did you stop racing?
When did I start?
No, stop.
I haven't stopped.
Oh, when did you start?
1970. Okay, so that's the local press, and local paper, and I got a picture of your dad racing at Tinley Park, and that's what that picture is there.
Most of the pictures that you have, did you take them?
No. I don't think I ever took any pictures. So I was lucky that people would take pictures and would give me pictures. You know, I didn't have the TV show. I didn't start the TV show till '86. So all this is prior to that. Now, I may have some video footage of your dad. If I got it, I'm going to put it in. But I don't have any film or anything. I found something the other day that said BMX race in Springfield, and I don't know what it is. I'm going to try to. All right, so the other thing, because I was swimming at Independence Park all the time to stay in shape, to race, I talked to the superintendent at Independence Park, and I approached him with the idea of doing a BMX race in Chicago. So the first BMX race that ever took place in Chicago was at Independence Park, which is at Irving Park in Springfield, and was basically just a flat field with a couple of turns. I don't even think there was any jumps. We didn't try to make any jumps. And so this is a newspaper article from the first BMX race ever held in Chicago. And that picture there, I think, is Sycamore Speedway. So Sycamore Speedway out in Sycamore, Illinois, besides having motorcycle races, having car races out in the field, they built the BMX track too. So the whole we were right there. We were right there as the BMX thing was exploding. This is when the NBA was just getting together, NBL, I think ABA and NBL were the two national organizations that were getting organized. So we were right there at the whole ground of BMX racing. So here's a picture of, that's Billy doing a tabletop, two of them, and then John Walker is this picture here, and there's your dad, and that's a great picture. I used it in advertising. But that's another, see, the other thing is, I'm going to give your dad his biggest compliment. By the time he was 8 years old, I mean, I helped put the bike together, you know, put the crank on, put the gears on. Eventually, we had 3 sets of wheels. Like that picture there, he's got sew-ups on the bike. We had sew-ups. We had some skinnier racing tires that were a little, the diameter of the wheel was a little bigger, and we also had knobbies. I was not the Little League father. Your dad, at 8 years old, took complete care of his bicycle. He picked the gearing, he picked what tires he was going to run, whatever he wanted to do, that's what he did. Now, you know, you've heard the term of helicopter parents and soccer parents. Well, I would get him to the races. From that moment on, it was up to him. Danny, your dad took care of everything on his own. That's how great of a racer he was. So these are ads that I put together because we got involved with Oshner and Oshner. Now, Oshner and Oshner was an importer on Peterson Avenue, and he was bringing in Gypium components, another Italian company, and he wanted someone to sell the components. So I put these ads in to sell Gypium components, and those are ads in there. Turn the page. And there's some pictures of me shooting the Gypium by hanging them up with a sheet in the background, and that's how I got the different pictures. And by putting your dad in the pictures, because he had so many trophies. But then turn the page again.
3 guys there, and then Levi and Chris.
And this list here, I found this, unbelievable what I have in my attic. In the deepest corner of my attic, I found 2 boxes. One box has got all my racing records, and I put them all together from the 70s. I found the box. These are kids, this whole list here on the next page. These are kids that sent me 50 cents, and I would send them the Gypium stickers and the Gypium price list. So these are all, and there's still more. I haven't had time to go through it here. And here's a typical letter. This kid from Mexico sent 50 cents to get the Gypium stickers, to get the, and he drew in a nice bicycle. See, the kid's got good handwriting. I mean, this is pretty impressive stuff. I mean, the kids that were involved, like I've always stated, kids that are involved with racing, kids that are involved with sports are not juvenile delinquents. It's almost impossible to be a juvenile delinquent and be involved with sports or racing. And racing, because it takes up so much time that you don't have time to get in trouble. So that's the one thing that this whole BMX thing was pretty cool, because you know, your dad was never in trouble. I mean, he was constant. And the other thing, if he didn't do good in school, he couldn't race. So he had to get good marks if he wanted to go race. So the whole Team Chicago thing, if he wanted to hang out with his friends, if he wanted to go to racing, he had to be a good student. So these, you know, these are very important things that that help, you know, the whole sports thing to me. You know, to flip over the next page. now we're looking at some of the racing photos that I got. And so we got to remember that he started when he was 7, then he turned 8 the next summer, because his birthday's in April. So now he's racing 8. And the great story there, I'm showing some races here, but go to the next page. All right. I don't know what track this is, but I'll tell the story about racing his first national. The NBL had some races in the Midwest. So it's the National Bicycle League. So the first race that we could make, and just by chance, I mean, bad luck for me, good luck for your dad. I crashed into the wall at Santa Fe Speedway. Bent the front of my motorcycle, bent the frame, I had to get the frame fixed. So I wasn't going to be racing. I was black and blue from my shoulder to my knee. Later I found that I had an x-ray taken years later, and I found a crack that long in my pelvis. So that's what happened hitting the wall at Santa Fe. Never went to the doctor, never went to the hospital, but I knew I couldn't race for 3 or 4 weeks. So it just so happened they're going to have a national at Collinsville on Saturday. Collinsville is down by St. Louis. And then a national in St. Louis on Sunday. NBL. So we drive down to it. We get down to Collinsville, and they said, was he expert or novice? And I said, well, who's got the bigger trophies? And it was the expert class. I said, well, then he's an expert. So he entered him into the 7-year-old expert class. Big downhill course. I mean, at least 200 to 300 feet down. He was loving every second of it. It was high speed, big jumps. He won everything. And the next day over in St. Louis, it was sort of a flatter track. He may have won then too, but I remember the Collinsville thing. So that way, even though he only ran 2 races with NBL as a 7-year-old, when he became an 8-year-old, he got his national number 9. That's why you'll see pictures with him with number 9. That's when he had the national. And these pictures here, and I don't know what racetrack this is, but you can see here, not only is he a good racer, but you can see at the end there, he always talked to his competitors. I mean, he was always the friendliest. He never had a grudge against anybody. He always was, you know, a genuine nice guy. He definitely was the type of kid that, you know, your parents would want you to hang around with. This is the film that I found on a 3/4-inch pneumatic tape. This film was from 1979. Danny was 8 years old, and I believe this is from Springfield, Illinois. Let's take a look at it one more time. Now I'm going to go into the most important story, and we might be running out of time here, but this picture here says it all. As an 8-year-old, the final race of the year, Indianapolis, downtown Indianapolis. I think we weren't in the Silverdome, but we're in that Silverdome complex. And it was just a flat concrete track with wooden jumps. The 2 other riders, the one on the end, they all called him Jason Jensen, and he was in all the magazines. He was the greatest racer in the entire world. Then the other racer is Brad Rats from Michigan, and he won all the races up in Michigan. So those were the two odds-on favorite. And there's your dad on the end. And the beauty of this is, he beat them to the first jump. He was over them, they crashed into each other. From that moment on, you know, they didn't finish that first moto. Your dad had the championship wrapped up. So he became the first 8-year-old world champion. Before BMX was involved with the Olympics, before BMX was anything, he was the first 8-year-old world champion. Turn the page, we got a couple more pictures of your dad and some of the NBL racing.
This is NBL too?
Yeah, that was War of the Stars was NBL. So there's what is that one there? What does it say? What town?
Wakarusa.
Wakarusa, Indiana, then turn it over. So those were the nationals. By then there was more nationals. And then this is Mendota, right? Mantino, I mean, okay. I think that's another picture of Sycamore Speedway, and I think that could be Brett Woods winning that race. So those guys were always competitive too, but because it was the whole team thing, it was 7 or 8 of us, you know, and even though these guys were older, they were 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, they treated your dad as, they never ever talked down to your dad. I mean, they treated him as even can be. And then quickly, here's the second poster for the city of Chicago. There's another part of it that we use a picture of Billy there. And one thing I want to point out, there's a picture of my daughter Bridget, and she raced, and I think she won her class. So we had a girls class, and Bridget, even though she never got too involved with BMX, so that's Bridget there. All right, now flip the page over. The final picture I want to show, there's your cousin Brandon. This was in the newspaper, riding his bicycle, and your dad will tell you that he probably taught Brandon everything he knows. But that's a pretty good picture of Brandon. My grandson Brandon was pretty well known in all the skate parks in DuPage County. He was a pretty good freestyle rider. And now we're going to look at my first TV production ever that I did with my son back in 1986, the first production for Chicago Access. Take it away, Danny.
Hello, my name is Danny Schmitt, and I'm on the Team Chicago Freestylers. And I'm here to show you how to freestyle and to talk about what freestyling is about. Freestyling is a sport for people who get bored of racing or who don't want to race, and a freestyling is basically an individual sport that you don't have to go to tracks or anywhere to do it. You can do it in a play lot or in a park or anywhere. You know, you could go by yourself and just freestyle. And I'm here to show you how to do a couple tricks. And the trick I'm going to do now is a rock walk, which is a 180 side kick. And when the back tire lands, you pick up the front wheel and crank that around the other 180. Okay, the next trick I'm going to do is called a 360 rollout, which is when you do a 180 bunny hop, land on the back tire, and then crank the front wheel around the other 180, and then you just ride out of it. Okay, the trick I'm going to do now is called a bar hop, and that's when you ride and you hop onto the handlebars facing forward and keep riding. Okay, the trick I'm going to do now is called front wheel hops, and that's when you ride and you put put your feet on your fork standers and put on the front brake and start bouncing. These right here are what you need.
This was the first production I ever did for Chicago Access. The entire Danny Schmitt Team Chicago freestyle production will be up on YouTube. Remember, this was produced in May of 1986 when Danny was 15 years old. To contact me, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from my audience. And remember, you can always search on YouTube with Dan Schmitt Motorcycle Racing for great motorcycle racing action.